Thank you all for joining us this evening. I do appreciate you coming to this Midtown PIC. I also want to thank our counselors who are able to make it this evening, Counselor Janet Hassett-Thiel and Counselor Giddings. Appreciate you doing that. Thank you for grabbing some refreshments as well at the back. If you're looking for washrooms, they're right here behind me in here. I would like to start with our land acknowledgement. Oakville, as we know it today, is rich in the history and modern traditions of many First Nations. From lands of the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaran and Haudenosaunee, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in First Nations history. As we gather today on the sacred lands of Treaties 14 and 22, we are in solidarity with Indigenous brothers and sisters to honor and respect Mother Earth, the original nations of the trees and plants, the four-legged, the flyers, the finned, and the crawlers as the original stewards of Mother Earth. We acknowledge and give gratitude to the waters as being life and being sacred, and to the carriers of those water teachings, the females. We acknowledge and give gratitude for the wisdom of the grandfathers and the four winds that carry the spirits of our ancestors that walked this land before us. The town of Oakville is located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the treaty holders, for being stewards of this traditional territory. And I'd like to now invite Jeff Chow from Jacobs, who will walk us through the latest as we get into Midtown Oakville PIC. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. Thanks everyone for joining us here this evening. So we'll just start with a quick structure for tonight. We'll spend about 25 minutes on a presentation where I'm going to be walking you through some of the key objectives related to stormwater, transportation, and urban design, including some of the constraints and opportunities, some of the alternative solutions that we've been developing, as well as a process that we're going to use to develop our preferred options. For the second part of our presentation, or second part of the activities, we'll have set up 4 interactive booths, and the activities each will focus on transportation, stormwater, and urban design. And that'll be about an hour and a half following the presentation. Please note that this presentation is being recorded and will be shared on the Town of Oakville's YouTube channel. So just a quick agenda for tonight's presentation. I'll be walking you through an introduction to the program, catch everyone up to speed on where we're at. Then I'll be talking about each of the technical elements, the transportation, the stormwater, the urban design pieces. And then I'll go through some of the next steps and some key dates to look out for moving forward. So the Midtown Implementation Program is meant to advance the objectives of the Official Plan Amendment 70 that was recently adopted by Council, and to support the infrastructure delivery for the town moving forward. This includes developing a broad range of plans and strategies that will help the town in advancing its own infrastructure, but as well as reviewing and managing development and working with its partners and stakeholders. We know that Midtown does not exist on its own, and it needs to support town-wide and region-wide objectives for planning, for transportation, servicing, and many other topics. The plans and strategies developed through the program also need to be implementable and achievable, with the expectation that there will be continuous monitoring, updates, and changes as development and growth occurs. So where we are in the program, it's been a long journey. The Official Plan Amendment 70 was adopted by Council on February 18th of this year. We actually started our program all the way back in 2023, and through that time, we've been supporting the town on various technical elements of that OPA process. And we're now continuing to work through our functional planning elements within our program. We're here today to discuss potential options for transportation, for stormwater, and for urban design. We'll be coming back to you with the proposed solutions for these areas in June, and then we'll be proceeding with the functional design, as well as phasing and finally funding and financing towards the end of the year. Beyond our program, the town will be continuing to review and manage development, as well as advancing the delivery of its infrastructure. So the 3 core areas that the town manages within Midtown, transportation, stormwater, and urban design, we know there are a broad range of challenges within the existing context of Midtown related to each of these, but with development and growth, there are opportunities for enhancement. The transportation and stormwater plans will be conducted as master plans under the municipal class environmental assessment process, which will allow further advancement of key infrastructure beyond our study. Urban design will create a public realm and parks plan included within a built form guideline called Designing Midtown. For transportation, stormwater, and public realm, all these elements need to fit within a constrained urban space. And we know that there's a heightened importance in making sure that these elements work together cohesively. These are elements that people will interact with on a day-to-day basis, so we value your input. And we're excited to hear from all of you on your ideas for each of these topics in the context of Midtown so that we can develop solutions that fit the nature of Oakville and Midtown Oakville. So what informs our work? Midtown does not exist on its own. It's a small physical area that will need to interact with adjacent communities and the broader areas of the town and region. We need to not only be mindful of our plans and work, but we need to integrate our infrastructure with those broader areas in the town and region. So in order to size our transportation, our stormwater, and servicing, and all the other elements, we need to be connected with other plans that the town and region are developing. Both the town's transportation master plan and the region's integrated master plan are currently ongoing, and they cover the entire town and region, and they've been ongoing processes over the past 2 years. The town has also recently completed a parks, library, and recreation master plan, and all of this work has been using the same forecasts that were developed towards the end of 2023, which are called the Joint Best Planning Estimates. It is important to remember that these master planning exercises are continuously updated, and so new inputs, such as the adopted Midtown OPA, as they come forward, will eventually inform future iterations of those plans and studies. And we know that through the OPA process, there was some supplementary work that looked at refining and updating those forecasts. And as part of our work, we will also be conducting some sensitivity studies to better understand how those will impact the transportation, stormwater, and public realm and servicing elements of our plan. I'm now going to go through a brief overview of each of the technical components that we'll be sharing today, and more detailed information are available on the panels in the back after the presentation, and there'll be technical staff available to help answer any question that you may have. But please do provide your input to us directly. So we'll start with the transportation piece. We know that the area is constrained. There are many physical barriers such as the rail tracks, 16 Mile Creek, the QEW, and other factors that impact the area. The existing transportation facilities, are primarily designed for cars, and there are limited facilities for pedestrians, for cyclists, and for transit vehicles. There is also a high supply of parking, which promotes auto dependency, though through development, there may be opportunities for many of these surface parking lots or unused spaces to be repurposed. With new development, there's opportunity to provide a more fine-grained street network with a focus on safe, complete street designs. New crossings can be developed, which would better allow access for those coming to and from Midtown, but also through the area. Broader improvements to regional transit infrastructure will allow opportunities to really focus on prioritizing transit and making it a truly viable mode of travel to get to various destinations across the town and region. We can also better manage the supply of parking in the area and transition away from being auto dependent for the Midtown area. But this doesn't mean not being able to drive for new residents or those adjacent to Midtown. That just means having the option to access jobs, retail, amenities, and more without the need for driving. So Midtown has been planned for a very long time. We're certainly not the first study to be advancing some of this work. And there are a range of plans and studies that have already looked at some of the infrastructure for the area, with particular emphasis on transportation. So that's kind of our starting point for looking at improvements for our future plans. Well, this is called the business as usual, and what we will be comparing some of our solutions to. We have also updated our understanding by testing the impacts and feasibility of some of these specific elements to make sure that they're still aligned with the objectives of our transportation plan, of the overall townwide transportation plan, as well as the adopted official plan amendment. So what are our options for actually improving upon that business as usual case? So we've defined 3 solution sets, each with a different focus. The first will focus around providing more road capacity. We know there's a need for additional capacity to the west over 16 Mile Creek. We know there's also potential need for capacity over the rail tracks. The second alternative will focus more around transit and active transportation policies with enhanced strategies to help further transition people to other modes of travel and thereby reducing the amount of people that, on the roads driving. Finally, the third approach recognizes that the area is fairly auto-dependent and looking at balancing the priorities between providing additional road capacity and providing enhanced active transportation and transit strategies. The solutions that we develop with your input will then be evaluated against 6 draft criteria, and each will have a range of indicators that you'll be able to explore at the panels. Please visit the transportation booth and you'll learn more about some of the testing that we've done so far, as well as the solutions and the criteria. Next, I'll walk through the stormwater elements. So the stormwater plan will look at managing rainfall and stormwater within the Midtown area. We know that there are some existing challenges. Midtown is not a greenfield area. There's a high amount of paved imperviousness, and there's a lack of drainage capacity and historical stormwater management within the area. But with a new proposed road network, with new parks, and with new development, there'll be changes to these stormwater conditions. They'll help channel and move water away to new areas, and they'll also provide opportunities for better management, both above and below grade, along roads and within parks. We know that we need to meet a range of environmental criteria for 16 Mile Creek and Morrison Creek, and these will be achieved through a range of control measures throughout the area. We'll be taking what's called a treatment train approach, where we'll look at treating the rainfall where it lands, conveying some of that extra stormwater to areas where we have more space and facility to do so, and then managing it by storing and releasing the stormwater to outlets at 16 Mile Creek and Morrison Wedgwood. Like with transportation, there are a range of evaluation criteria that we'll be using to select preferred options, and a total of 12 indicators aligned with each of these criteria have been determined, and we'll be looking for your input to further refine them, and you'll be able to explore that at the stormwater booth. Finally, the urban design piece. So we'll be updating the Designing Midtown document, which will look at both the built form as well as public realm and parks. On the built form side, we'll be looking to align with the recently council adopted new OPA. The updated Designing Midtown will really follow on the objectives in the OPA and set expectations for landowners and developers to achieve high quality urban design and architecture. It'll establish design objectives for built form elements. It'll also be used by the landowners and developers to create their design. And then it will also be used by town staff to review those future development applications and proposals. It will also include a parks and public realm element, which will focus more on what are being managed by the town along its roads and along its public spaces, including parks. And this will include both publicly or privately owned, publicly accessible spaces, as well as the parks that the town will own itself. It will help identify the role, the function, the character, in the cases of the larger open spaces, the civic programming and recreational potential within these spaces. This will be used by town staff to advance public infrastructure and also provide guidance for landowners and developers in creating a more holistic plan for the area. And that brings us to next steps. So following tonight's presentation and activities, we'll then be going back to refining some of the solutions that you'll see and then testing them against the criteria that you will get a chance to look at. for the stormwater and transportation solutions. We'll then be coming back to you with a preferred concept in roughly around June for further feedback. We'll then be taking that back for refinement and then developing a functional design that will include key elements of both the transportation and stormwater plans, as well as some other pieces that we're developing within our program. It'll also integrate with townwide processes like the townwide transportation master plan and the region's integrated master plan. And just some key dates before I close off. So we'll be collecting feedback on obviously all the materials that we're sharing today. We'll have another public session in around June to look at the preferred solution. We'll be refining that in around early fall, and that'll be then going to council. The functional design and cost estimates will then be prepared towards late fall, and then we'll be working towards a phasing strategy in alignment with a lot of the town's partners and other stakeholders. And then finally, towards the end of the year in early 2026, we'll be finishing off with the funding and financing piece of our work. So that brings me to the end of our presentation. Thank you all for your time. I'd just like to introduce Christina, who will walk through the next step of our tonight's event.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for being here again. Now that we've given you a bit of a presentation, the rest of the time we have together, which is about an hour and a half, will be reserved for our consultation. Again, I'm Christina, and I've been supporting the engagement and consultation piece. For those of you who have come with us before, you might be familiar with our format, and if it's your first time, welcome. What we've done is we've identified a series of short informal activities centered around the 4 topics that Jeff introduced this evening. So we have a booth with information and activities that will be supported by members from the project team who have subject matter expertise in these areas, who will be there to answer comments and questions and kind of guide you. And we have 4 booths just in the back area you probably saw when you came in. One will be focused just on kind of program overview and just understanding of the project. The second's on transportation plan. The third is on the stormwater plan. And the fourth is on urban design. We really encourage you to kind of join us, grab a donut, have some coffee, and just share your opinions, your perspectives. We really want to collect your feedback and your input. We've designed the activities to be short and straightforward, and we're there to support you along the way if you have any questions. And basically, we'll be listening and we'll be synthesizing all of the feedback on the workshop activities back there. And then when we have our follow-up consultation in June, we'll also be sharing a little bit of what we heard from this group and how that will inform our work going ahead. So without any further delays, I invite you to kind of gradually walk over and connect with us, and we look forward to chatting with you and talking about the project. Thanks again.